The potential threat of an eruption since the Obsidian Festival forced Siesta to relocate from its once prosperous volcanic shores to a nomadic city. As a homage to the most memorable scenery of Old Siesta, the city center has been constructed to resemble the shape of a volcano. The whole city resembles its old image, portraying just how much the Siestans loved their old home. And well, this is one of the few things that New Siesta would have in common with its predecessor. The moving of an entire city and its people is a monumental task, one that has been accomplished fairly successfully. Atmosphere and tourism would see a tremendous change in this new environment due to this move though. Tourism in general is heavily influenced by its environment, since that is what people usually visit for. Losing their biggest natural site is a huge loss that resulted in a decline of visitors of New Siesta. Everything feels so clean and purposeful in the new city. It makes it feel stiff, missing the old overall calm but bustling vibe. Herman, as the mayor of Siesta, believes in two things related to this. First, since Siesta left its golden shores, tourism will never boom as much as it did. They will need to rely on other ways to stay economic. And second, does he trust that their current down is only temporary? Siesta is Iberian for afternoon nap after all, and the city will wake up once more in due time. This, of course, doesn't really help many residents right now. Shops are forced to close down one after the other. It didn't occur to many that things would change more than just them having to move away from their old home. One place in particular is struggling with this more than just physically. The Siesta Fashion Street has seen better days. No tourists mean a decline in their lifeline. Their Golden Coast had to be abandoned, and now they are nothing more than any other nomadic city one can find in Victoria or Colombia. There is an obvious problem regarding the financial status of most shop vendors in this part of the city. But money is actually not the underlying factor that is worrying its inhabitants. So long Adele puts an outward emphasis on the interest conflict between the vendors and the city council's decision to repurpose the fashion street. Bison and Swire are part of the investors that presented plans for this remodeling. The city's new location has a huge potential for becoming an international trading and transportation hub. A lookout that is sure to provide enough work for people to be resettled into a new livelihood. But there is next to zero interest in moving on the fashion street. They are unhappy with how the mayor has been dealing with the plans for them. They already had to relocate once from their old city to this one, and now they would have to move again. Besides, the bidding for the actual renovation plans are still ongoing, so at that time nobody knew what would become of their old homes in the end. Their fears for everything getting taken from them are valid. In all of this, Bison is rather upfront with his ideas and pays little attention to the underlying feelings of the people, although he is aware of what they are struggling with. After all, he too had to move away from miners at a very young age. One thing during this scared him tremendously: change. And here is where we arrive at the core of our story. Change is something that every character in So Long Adele had to deal with. The residents of the fashion street portray that in a manner that many would describe as, in the past, everything was better. The old ice cream vendor complains about how no one is really appreciating rock and roll artistically anymore. Imagination has left the youth. Others are concerned about the march of progress that is eroding the past that the future is built upon. In this case, Old Siesta. One could call this nagging of the old-timers, who are stuck in their past. But there is truth to what they say. Even Swire acknowledges that it's hard for anyone right now to adjust to a new life that is vastly different from what they were used to. The fashion street was so beautiful and relaxing. Both its sides are lined with iconic and old-fashioned beachside shops that remind of Siesta's old scenery. I'd say that there is a sense of nostalgia that the streets emits, if only through the text and the sparse images. Which is of course deliberate, since the whole vintage look fits into the scheme, and many more are liking the style. As the fashion street hosted one last trade fair, organized by the city, the hustling and bustling of old returned one last time. Business during this fair is good, the atmosphere is wholesome, and every single person is feeling merry. The success of the street is to a big part resulting from the vendors themselves. Their friendly and very individual ways of interacting with customers make it feel like one just stumbled into a flea market in one's neighborhood. Everybody knows each other and does friendly banter. This is also the truth. The residents know each other very well. In some cases, they were living on the street their whole life. A worry that grips them all is just bound to tuck them all together even tighter. But that worry is an unavoidable one. Fairs like the day are not sustainable anymore with the decline in tourists that New Siesta has. Over the course of Adele's adventures, the residents of the fashion street slowly give in to the ever-pestering government official who is asking for their approval of the relocation plans. Usually I would complain here that we don't really see when and how they are changing their minds from opposing to accepting the city's proposal. But I think there's not much need to explain this actually. Time is passing over the event's duration, and money is surely not getting a lighter problem for them all, which would already be reason enough to change their livelihood. Time itself is what I would regard as a more influential factor though. As they were relocated from Old Siesta, no one really knew when the volcano would erupt. For those that are no researchers, this even includes the question of if it would even erupt. Being chased out of your old life is always scary, more so when one can't fully comprehend the reason. Even minor mishappenings in the new environment can remind one of the comfort of the old. This is harder the closer one is to the actual change. The further one moves away from it, the more time passes, the easier it is to become acceptant of the new circumstances that grow in familiarity. The closer those circumstances are to the old ones, the less does one struggle with this change. It was reasonable for the vendors to just take their entire street with them. Not much would change. Unfortunately, is it the environment that is no longer sustaining the street though? Over the event, more and more become aware of this, and that neither the mayor nor an evil government official wants to kick them out of their homes. It's simply nature that decided so. In honors of their old life, the residents of the fashion street organized one last party at the beach with a view of Mount Siesta. The instrument shops provided the instruments and music, the food vendors the barbecue and snacks, and everybody else contributed in the logistics of their little party. At it, the citywide radio transmits that the volcano would erupt in a short while. As it does, everyone at the party is reacting rather resignated to it. Oh, it really erupted. Almost like a weight fell off their shoulders. Or perhaps a giant boulder finally crushed their hearts. They won't need to think about what if they wouldn't have relocated from Old Siesta anymore. But it also means that their old home is gone for good now. Seems like the volcano and beach helped them move on in their new lives. After a while, someone starts to sing a song and everybody chimes in. As they do so, they are reminded of their memories of old. The good times that they had. The last days and the party today showed them though, that those times don't have to stay in the past. All they need are themselves and their company. They can start anew while bringing their old life with them, creating something new but reminiscent by mixing both the old with the new. For what's gone is gone, and the future will come. Tomorrow is a new day. See you, Siesta. This story revolving around the fashion street is beautiful. It deals with something you don't see all too often in entertainment media in such a calm way: adults and how they cope with change. The residents move from their worries and problems in their new life to accepting these changes over time by realizing what they still have: themselves and their memories. Something that I very much like about their perception of Old Siesta is the beauty and solemn of it. No one really talks about any problems they had there. Surely there were at least a couple, but that doesn't matter. It was their home and they visibly loved it dearly. Their new home seems so much rougher because they are that much more burdened than in their memories. And with how things currently seem to go, New Siesta looks like it's on a good path to becoming a good new home. After all, would things see them keep most of their fashion street intact in the end, after some renovations? And this is mostly thanks to true eager and caring investors, as well as a city government that is far from abandoning its own people. This brings us to the next character who was in the services of said city. Costa has been assigned with the job to collect the signatures of the Fashion Street residents for the agreement of its veneration. And he hates this job. He has to deal with stuck-up investors, run after unwilling shop vendors, and has to bear the hatred of those that see him as nothing more than an official from the city who's out for their money. Costa knows that the street has to change, for its and Siesta's benefit. That's why he gave up on taking over his grandfather's cafe that is located on the fashion street. Costa is not a bad guy. He wants his neighbors to get into better waters. He's just very awkward. This makes it hard for him to not only convince them, but also show that he does care and is fundamentally kind. This is also shown in his attitude towards Adele as she visited his closed-down cafe. Despite his bad mood, which even Adele is more than conscious of, he kindly helps her in search for her lost item. Costa is going through something most adults have to go through at one point. Work sucks, and you're not even getting a speck of recognition for it. And even though he has a loving wife at home, Costa faces a slump. A slump that subconsciously led him into the recently opened volcano museum, where he wonders what he's even doing there. Such a building in the city serves no purpose. What's there about volcanoes anyways? Just as he asks himself that, random facts about volcanoes surface in his mind, and his gaze wanders to a familiar person that he hasn't seen in years. Adele's research associate and curator of the museum, Keller. A friend that he got to know years back, and from who he got a book about volcanoes that he became absorbed in. But instead of catching up with her, Costa just leaves without so much of a word, either because he feels too awkward, or cause of his mental down, or perhaps both. Costa is so relatable because his work brings him into a position where small things are impacting his mood even more. A misplaced key or an old guitar falling on his foot are minor mishappenings. His current situation makes them bring him down even more. He wasn't always like that. In the past, Costa was a rather rowdy youngster with big dreams of playing his guitar at the highest spot of Siesta one day, the volcano, the reason for why he was once interested in them. He was a bright and curious musician once, but growing up has likely faced him with too many responsibilities that changed him. Not necessarily to the worse though. Now he is dependable and dutiful. It's just that he's missing to look at the bright side in his life. His grandfather Mockingbird is noting this too. From their little interactions, one can see what kind of relationship they had. Their almost competitive, bitter joking about each other shows that his grandfather knew how to control his rowdy grandson. Costa usually brings up the collection of the signatures for the Fashion Street relocation very professionally. To his grandfather though, he only ever whispers displeased, almost as if he feels like he is betraying the time that he worked and relaxed at the cafe. He wouldn't even need his grandfather's consent at this point, given the ownership of the property which went to him. But again, Not telling him at all would feel to Costa like he's betraying his past. Grandpa Mockingbird tries a last time, knowing that it is futile. Why would a girl like such a boring man, who only does work for a living? Do you really want the fashion street to disappear? He even asks him to play the guitar again, but Costa denies this. Their situation won't change because of wishful thinking. Some things just need to be done. Making a living is one of them, and the fashion street, including the cafe, is not capable of it in the current state, even though he is still attached to it. Begrudgingly, his grandfather signs the form, and Costa thanks him. Bad times are bound to be followed by better ones. Eventually. Costa's wish is for that to happen, not primarily to him, but others. He knew that it would take time to convince everyone in the fashion street to approve of the relocation. The best he can do is continue and maybe lessen their struggles. The trade fair hosted by the city on the fashion street was his doing. Having given something to them, some of the residents returned the favor. Not only did the attitude of the hardliners towards the relocation start to change, one of his grandfather's friends even gave him a belated marriage gift. He sees that Costa chose stability in his life over other things, a decision he can understand, but also one that shouldn't exclude fun times like the fair Costa organized. This silent moment resembles the common understanding Costa and his neighbors reached. Change is a part of life. It's unavoidable. That doesn't mean that you can't influence it. Maybe both of them should recognize these 2 points more. The residents have to accept this unavoidance of change, whereas Costa should stop to worry about it all the time and enjoy his life too. Nostalgic as their conversation has made him, Costa went back to the cafe, brewing a coffee as he did so often before. Just as he was about to leave, Keller stepped into the cafe. She received the book that Costa asked Adele to return to Keller and stopped by for old time's sake. The conversation is a perfect fit for the two introverts they are, as it is filled with awkward silence. They reminisce about their youth, Costa's rowdy times when he was still playing guitar, and Keller's path to becoming a scientist. Her reason for continuing it has vastly changed from before. Still, change isn't always a bad thing, wouldn't you say? This prompts Costa to talk about his future. Surprisingly, he thinks of running another cafe, just not this one. I love this short exchange between the two of them. It shows their mutual appreciation for each other, while also telling that both of them have problems to strike up a casual conversation, seeing that the other and themselves have changed a lot. This is a romanticization of their adult growth. Both speak of the fun they had during their youth, after which life has caught up to them and made them into more serious grown-ups. A pattern that is thought of as the norm. Costa would later even summarize this to motivate Ennis on his own decisions. There are no fun, no good times. They are all a waste of time. It's just that we don't realize that, which is why we can go back in our memories to think of these times as great. Times where life wasn't as filled with duties and responsibilities. Times change, and these chances to have fun in the past won't stick around forever. No time is as good as now to make memories as long as one can. Costa usually makes a lonely appearance. His professionalism makes him seem distant in conversations with almost anybody. His grandfather is the only one who one can see a tight and long-lasting relationship with. Even his conversation with Keller is painful to read at times. Costa perfectly resembles the bitter sense of nostalgia. Both the joy of reminiscing as well as knowing that it is gone for good. His adulthood has caught up with him, or he has let it catch up to him. Has it made him miserable, or accomplished to find himself a stable life with a loving wife? Growing up means knowing that many adults get posh and serious to a certain degree, and that this is partially unavoidable. Costa is old enough to be able to look back at his self that didn't have to worry about these things yet. In the past, how often have you heard your parents or relatives telling you you should appreciate your time in school? It's the best time of life after all. I think that there is a sense of truth in that. Worries about bad grades seem small now, but that doesn't mean that your life has become bad. It simply changed. There are two reasons why I think that Costa is one of FABknight's most well-written characters. One I will explain at another time. The other one is that he symbolizes what the fashion street does individually, something we all have to go through. The theme of growing up and dealing with it in such a way that you simply don't, because it happens over time. It's something that isn't told all too often from a perspective that talks about it like Costa does. Responsibilities grow with age. His grandfather's declining health, his wife, and the ownership of the old cafe force his hands. He hates some of the things he has to do to keep all of this going. Dealing with annoying investors, bearing the hatred of those that don't want to move. He seems like he is really depressed through all of this, but he really is not. He just has to learn for the first time how to keep his life going as an adult. And in the end, all he can say about this is, it isn't too bad right now. Life has to go on. The obvious center of So Long Adele is Adele. Her first appearance already frames what her problem of the story is. She arrived at the Volcano Museum, standing before her mother's old protective suit. As she touches the glass that it is behind, she quickly pulls her hand back as if she was burned. Her parents' research colleague Keller invited her since she would use a lot of Adele's parents' belongings and research in the museum. Adele, of course, has no issues with that. It's the logical way of preserving their memories. For Keller, this will be her last step to honor her late colleagues and friends. Simultaneously, will it carry on Siesta's hopes and past that is so tightly connected to its volcano. And it also opens up the possibility for Adele to hear more about her parents' past through their work. Something she seems very eager in, since she often asks Keller about more stories of the time together. And Keller wouldn't be her only source of information. A certain and famous sheep would assist her in her problems. Dolly knew her parents, so much that it considers them its friends. It knows that Adele must be sad about their passing, and asks her whether she is happy right now. Adele doesn't really answer this. Her continuing their work is the meaningful thing to do for her right now. An obvious way to tell that she is not happy when she dodges the question like this. Dolly knows that it will take something roundabout to answer its question more meaningfully, so it invites Adele on a search for 3 things that it lost: the north wind, a seed, and a fur. In the following day, Adele would go around town for a bit, after receiving an old letter which she believes to be from her father. After some time, she bumped into Ennis and collapsed due to low blood sugar. Ennis would carry her to Ceylon's clinic. She was evidently not happy with how Adele was treating herself and left her in bed to recover. As she does, Adele takes out the letter again and starts to write one herself as a reply. "How have you been? I'm doing fine here. It's been a long time. I miss you." Words start to get stuck in her throat, and tears fall on the paper. It's time to talk about Adele's mental state. The beginning of the event shows her internal conflict subtly until she breaks open. She knows better than anybody that her oropathy condition is severe. But if asked about it, all she can say is that she is lucky. She has learned to deal with it, knows how much time she has left, and she has a goal to work towards in continuing her parents' research. With Dolly, she asks whether she would soon die, since fairy creatures are said to appear before a person's death. This is heavy. A young woman is talking so effortlessly about her own suspectibility of death, and all she can think about is honoring her parents by furthering their efforts, which is not a bad thing in itself, but Adele uses this equally much as a distraction. Only when she was alone in Ceylon's clinic did she break down in tears with the words that make her suffer the most: "I miss you." Adele's song mirrors her feelings very well. Adele makes an effort to look as strong to anybody else as she can. Firstly, to not worry them, and secondly, to concentrate on research. The pain will go away with time, but she really is not that strong, definitely not mentally. She doesn't let her grief shine through to others, but deep down she misses her parents dearly and is afraid to lose them out of her sight. She tries her best to live the strength that they'd insist is in her. What if she loses her strength to go on though? Adele pressures herself into her research to have her parents close and distract herself from accepting her true feelings, fearing that she would no longer be able to continue on in her life. The black sheep that appears throughout the event resembles this. It is stuck. It tries its hardest to keep up with the sheep around it, but fails to do so. And then there's Dolly. Are you happy? A question so simple yet grueling to Adele. She doesn't even know how to answer it. Since she is putting on a strong face in front of others, Dolly chose its treasure hunt to make her acceptant of her fears. But that's only for once her volcano would erupt. Adele would next meet Baird, a traveling artist, after she had Anna's siblings and realized that the letter she had actually belonged to their father. Baird sings them a song titled The North Wind, the first of Dolly's lost items. It's about a long journey far away from home. A journey about life with losses, new sights and reunions. A supposed sign for Adele that life goes on and that her parents will always be with her. She of course misses this sign. The following day she ran around chasing a mischief sheep that was stealing various belongings of people. She came into an argument with Dolly since its sheep keep making those problems. Dolly says they only borrow these things to have some fun, which brings it to a question. Why is Adele never having fun, especially with kids her age? Adele, obviously being angry since she's no child anymore, uses her work as a pretext again, something that Dolly expected. It knows lonely children. They love to use work as an excuse, precisely what Adele is doing too. Dolly tells her that there's more to life than her work. It tells the sickness-ridden Adele that there's time to enjoy the scenery and make friends. The sun is just as bright tomorrow. During that tomorrow, Dolly pesters Adele further, asking who this painfully bitter and fatigueful air is coming from. Yeah, Adele is really not getting any break. Just then, Swire catches her and directs her to her one-day open water park during the Fashion Street's trade fair. There, Adele sees sheep and tourists mingle, simply enjoying the venue. This pretty much forces her to go along with the vibe and relax for a bit. Dolly later reveals that this was its goal today. When asking Adele whether she had fun though, all she did was complain about the sheep running around in the water park. Even Dolly sighs at how hard it seems to cheer her up. Just about that point, Adele realizes that she is at Costa's cafe, where she happens to see him talking with Keller. There, the surrounding sheep found a box of soda bottles, which scabs are Dolly's lost seed. What makes them seeds? Dolly sees these caps as something that spreads through the world. They travel to many places and transform into many different things, like being mixed with coffee. They all have their own charm though. Going further with this, There's the obvious connection to Adele's parents, since they gave Costa the idea for his coffee soda years back with such bottles. But I think there is even more to it. The cabs symbolize the connection between people. Connections that Adele has been neglecting due to her work. Her parents left these connections, these seeds that left their traces upon the world and people, which make it able for Adele to learn about them. Like Dolly already said, there's more in life to enjoy than just work. Like her parents, Adele should relax with her friends outside of academic efforts more. They would have not wanted it otherwise, which they would even affirm later. Probably the most important scene for Adele is her dream the following day. She gets walked around by two sheep while she wears her mother's coat. The whole scene is led by her parents, resembled by the two sheep, who tell Adele about their feelings for her in a hidden manner. Her mother prepares them for a volcano climb. For that, she needs to buy knowledge, courage, and curiosity. All things that Adele already has. While she has enough courage to climb the volcano, she does not have enough to leave home. Adele needs to find that on her own. Courage to leave the burdens of her memories in the past and carry on. Her parents make an effort to make this easier for her. The unlucky deaths were unavoidable in the face of nature. Luck just wasn't on their side. And while they don't regret their choices in research leading to this, they do regret their daughters, or how the sheep call it, their rock's future. Adele was already born under a dark cloud. Oripathy claimed much of her life. Luckily, many friends and colleagues besides her help her and are likewise helped by Adele. Her parents are glad at how she grew to be. Her gentle nature is something they were raising her up towards. Still speaking about this with the rock metaphor, Adele asks whether they would see their stone again. They won't. The rock has already turned into beautiful lava that is forging its own path ahead. All they can do is stand at its back, supporting it from its past. For the first time since coming to Siesta, Adele is happy in this little adventure she has with these sheep. She hugs them and in the process falls back down the volcano they just climbed. The sheep stop following her though. It's time for them to leave. Adele tries to reach out to them, but just like when writing her letter, her words get stuck in her throat. The sheep console her. They are always with her. The work she's doing is built on their shoulders. There's no reason to feel alone. They do urge her to go to new peaks rather than staying in a low of emotions. At last, they bid their farewell from her. So long, Adele. This scene is beautiful. Adele never came to peace with the passing of her parents, and that she never really could do anything in return for their love she received. She silently tries to avoid this anxiety of hers by continuing their legacy through her work. Here, her parents don't discourage her from that, quite the opposite. They tell her that she is connected through her research to them, and that she has all the necessary tools needed for that, resembled by the knowledge, courage, and curiosity. Her academic efforts are great, and they are very proud of that. They also see, though, that their past is pulling her down. While she has enough courage to climb volcanoes, she does not have enough to come to peace with their deaths. They can only assure her that they will stay in her memories and look at her from behind. This burdens them quite a lot. They are glad that they gave her a way to forge for her own, but equally regret that their deaths gave her a huge burden connected to this path. They believe, though, that keeping close what matters, friends and her gentle nature, will ultimately provide her with the courage to get her grief to a healthy state. It is questionable how this scene turned out in reality. For once, are the sheep not actually Adele's parents? Dolly mentions that there is no way to keep souls around. The sheep are merely replicates of what it thought of them to be. This makes it even more wholesome though that Dolly, the one who doesn't really seem to understand quite some aspects about the emotionally complex side of humans, envisioned Adele's parents as ones that deeply cared for their daughter. While Dolly might have also shaped them to fit its goal of helping Adele, the little information we get about the Naumans is enough to see that they were as gentle and supportive as Adele grew up to be. It's debatable whether they were ideal parents. Adele was alone a lot of the time due to their work, but they never failed to show her that she was loved, a big part of why she is how she is. After this dream, she stops seeing sheep around her altogether. She even starts to believe those were only hallucinations, as suddenly, one more sheep appears and leads her to Baird at the beach. Adele learns from her that more people are able to see some of the sheep, and starts to understand why. Baird and Ceylon saw sheep that resemble people they have strong connections to. Baird to a mining sheep that resembles the people she wrote a song for, and Ceylon to a sheep resembling her late mother. At this point, Adele slowly starts to realize what this was all aimed at. When she later was rescued by Dolly at the eruption of Mount Siesta, during which she wore her mother's gear, which Dolly revealed to be the last item of its treasure hunt, Adele directly asked it that this was not really a treasure hunt and what she thinks the sheep really are. Dolly's goal this entire time was for Adele to have some fun. Even it is sad about the Naumans passing, so it's sure to be worse for their daughter. She shouldn't act so tough, as if her sadness was being judged by someone. She was most likely burdened by the expectations of others. Her being a child of prodigies in their field, Adele was seen as a tenacious role model, given her illness and past. Wondering why exactly Dolly chose to help her, it answers with her inherent nature. Despite the many misfortunes that hit her, Adele still has as much love and kindness in her heart as any person on Terra. Something that is worthy to protect. Dolly asks her again if she had fun these last days, which this time Adele affirms. Dolly still smells half a lie within this, but half a truth is good enough for now. Lastly, Dolly bids her farewell, until next time when Adele will hopefully be truly happy. During her time in Siesta, Adele would not only start to heal her own scars, but also those of Keller. Keller has become tired over the years. She no longer has the energy to pursue an academic career, and so the Volcano Museum would be her last work, in the honor of her former colleagues that brought her into this field. Even then, Keller talks rather disconnectedly and coldly about Adele's parents, due to her own issues with her blaming herself for their misfortune. This whole time it is implied that there's more to this, especially since Keller herself feels immense guilt towards Adele. In a sense, her appearance is very similar to Costa's. She is another earnest adult, doing what she does out of a sense of obligation. Her talk with Costa also shows her socially awkward side, and tells about her past encounters with the Naumans, during which she got to know about their daughter. To her, Adele resembles her parents a lot. It's almost like they never left. Keller is constantly worried about Adele during this, questioning her physical conditions even more when Adele was faking a sick call. That's also why she didn't want to go to Mount Siesta, as they got the data fluctuations pointing to its imminent eruption. She feared that it would be too dangerous for Adele. And Keller had another reason to be reserved about scaling the volcano. Turns out, Adele is not the only one who was missing her parents dearly. Keller's life was massively influenced by these two people she met on a chance encounter in a certain cafe. They showed her a more beautiful world than she has ever seen in books, something she is deeply grateful for. After Mount Siesta's eruption settled down, she finally opened up to Adele about this. Additionally, does she tell her about why she felt so guilty? During the aftermath of the coup in Lytanian, the Naumans had been pressured into military research, which they partially had to comply with to keep working. Out of gratitude, Keller helped them to keep the research environment stable by helping in dealing with the military. During their fateful accident, Keller was meant to assist them, but opted out of the trip as a sudden military envoy needed someone's attention. Since then, she blamed herself for what could have been if she would have been with Adele's parents. That's also why she kept this a secret from her, fearing that Adele would also blame her. To Adele, this seems unfair. There's no fault in Keller's actions. More so, without her, Adele would likely have even less stories about her parents that only few people like Keller know. And so, Adele gives Keller a hug, a sign of her affection to a person that she not only respects on an academic level. Later, Adele would find a note of Keller in her parents' old research boxes that shows her respect for her late friends. She even signed this note with her name, Keller. Adele Keller. I don't even know where to begin here. To be honest, this is tear-jerking. Adele's parents were naming their daughter after their close friend Adele Keller. It shows how close of a relationship they truly had. This makes Keller's guilt even more understandable. She believed that she betrayed both her parents' trust in her and Adele's respect towards her, thinking that you ruined your friend's life and also their daughters who they named after you would weigh heavy on any heart. And even then, Keller built the museum in their honor and invited Adele to respect her feelings about her parents being a bit part of the exhibition. And in the end, both Adeles, plagued by their grief, hug each other as they resolve their worries and anxiety to look towards a brighter future. Our Adele would later pick up her letter again that she started to write to her parents in Ceylon's clinic. She tells them that she's doing fine and all about her adventures these last days with the many people she met along the way. She also acknowledges that she was never as strong as she made herself believe to be. But she no longer stops herself from having these weaknesses, be it physical or the pain of their loss. I think there are no better words for this than Adele's own as she closes her song.
Some mornings I just can't get up because the whole wide world put its weight on me. But that's when I remind myself to open up the gift that you gave to me. My eyes like yours, eyes that say I can take on anything and everything. I just wish you could see who I've become.
Adele's story is one of growing up. Not in the conventional sense though. While Costa and Keller grew into their responsibilities and had their lives changed through this, Adele grew to learn how to deal with her parents' deaths. In her files, records and modules, there are extensive looks into how she does after the events in Siesta. She continues to stay in close contact with Keller and Khan, and even writes about her newfound connections with her parents. The letters or audio tapes they left her, and the path that they laid which she is able to continue for them. It's not an exaggeration to call Adele's story the most wholesome in all of FABknights. And that doesn't even limit to her, but to the whole event. So Long Adele, Home Away from Home, talks about the challenges that adults face in changes, and how growing into an adult changes them. There is so much pressure in society to grow up. Adele is seen as a prodigy, something that people associate with a grown-up public appearance, which is why she felt so pressured into upholding it. Costa, on the other hand, had to change through the pressure of his growing responsibilities. But everyone in Siesta grew to accept the changes, a natural part in the life of everybody. Keller overcame her past self-blame. Pelipper accepted his worries of the past and how he could resolve these in the present. Bison and Swire started to bring change into their respective families' businesses with their own methods. Salen and Herman were able to open up to each other. Ennis went to accept his growing desire to travel the land and left his home, while the Fashion Street made its peace with the impending changes, that in the end were smaller than they feared. And Siesta itself? Well, Herman believed it only slept for a while. I believe Siesta just grew up another step in its life, and was equally troubled by this like its inhabitants. And it is already starting to look bright again. Who knows? We might even revisit it at one point with its new volcano festival. And it gets even better. Believe me or not, in my own revisit of this event and all of its surrounding archive materials, the cathartic end to all of this were the 2 chapters in Siesta from the Angelina manga. If only brief, one can see the growth that everybody from this event went through there, and how they continued on in their lives. And that's what this event is all about. Our lives are full of changes and challenges. Nobody is spared from bad times. But they will pass, with the effort we put into them and the courage to face it. There are so many more facets, character details, and things to take from New Siesta stories. All of them are a guarantee to warm one's heart, and I think that no event even gets close to this. And so, I will leave you with the lesson I most liked at this moment. Growing up is a given in life. It's a long and slow process that brings many changes with it. But in the end, we will always stay the same. People who love what they do, with the people we love. Cheers.